Welcome to Royal Legacy, where we will explore the rich athletic history and deep family connections of BYU sports. Join us as we honor the past, celebrate the present, and look forward to the future of the BYU Cougars. Here's your host, Lauren McClain.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Lauren McClain, and welcome to Royal Legacy, where we dive deep into the family connections of BYU sports. Joining me today are the Collie Brothers, former wide receivers for the BYU football team, Zach, who played from 2000 to 2006, Austin, who played from 2004 to 2008, and Dylan, who played in 2012 and 2018. Guys, thank you so much for coming on the show with me.
Great to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
This is the first time you've done an interview together, right?
True.
What's our excitement level? I mean, are we nervous? What's going to come out of your mouths? Or
I think we've always been wanting to, we've thrown around kind of a podcast idea before, right? You're going to get some big personalities here once we start getting comfortable.
I'm just getting you guys warmed up for when you do your own podcast. Okay, time to settle this right now. Who's the best athlete in the room? Do we need to do an arm wrestle, leg wrestle? How do we settle this? How do we settle this?
I think the best athletes are actually not in the room. Probably our
two sisters.
Yeah.
Taylor and Cameron, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
that's good.
That was a good answer.
Yeah.
That was a really good answer because it could get scary in here. Are you guys still competitive with each other now that you're all grown men and you have your own families?
Absolutely. I think so. Where we probably get most competitive is on the golf course. Really?
Yeah. I was going to ask what you compete in. And is golf the number one thing, Zach?
Golf is the number one thing. In fact, we were talking about it last night. Dylan's wife asked, because I used to hate golf, and I'm playing a lot more now, partly because of these two. And we'd go out and play with our dad, and they'd kill me. And so I got to get good.
And you're the
because I hate
oldest
coming
brother.
out here. I am. Yeah.
You can't be losing to your younger
You
brothers.
cannot.
Doesn't matter how
But
old
it
you
does
get.
happen regularly on the golf course.
Does it?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Well, I do want to point out, none of us are good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's a very low bar set.
If you're competing against people that are actually good, you'd all get blown
Which
out
means
of the
I'm
water.
really bad.
Hey, I for some reason I don't believe that, knowing how competitive and athletic you guys are. So,
we
but
could pull
golf
out
is
the
a hard
Guinness.
sport.
No, listen,
if
it's
you'd
pretty
like.
bad. It's
Yeah.
pretty surprising. You'd be like, I thought you guys were athletes, but it ain't great.
What else do you guys compete in? Is there pickleball, board games, or is it pretty chill?
I think the amount of time that we get to spend together is like if we all were next door neighbors, like Dawson and I are right now, right? There'd be more opportunity to warrant that type of stuff. But I think between the age gaps and the amount of time, it's like the one thing that we always choose to go and do is go play golf. And if we're not doing that, then it's wintertime and we're snowboarding. And
I was just going to say golf is a lot nicer on your bodies, but then you just mentioned snowboarding, and that definitely is not. So, wow.
Yeah, there's like a little annual trip that we all go on with just some guys from all over the country. We do it like once a year, and we feel it after day one. And unfortunately, it's a 4-day kind of deal, and there might be some pain medication that is brought so that we can get through it.
Unfortunately, it's a 4-day deal.
Whatever gets you to the next day.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Dylan, when you guys all get together, what do you talk about most at the dinner table? There's plenty to talk about with BYU football right now, but what do you guys talk about most when you're together?
I think like football, golf, business stuff in some ways, right? I mean, we're not yes, we're all individual people that are a part of business, but we're not, it's not like we've got 1,000 ideas.
Yeah.
But typically those things.
Okay.
And we have a lot of opinions. And so I think it's just hot take after hot take. And then that's when the levels of volume start to rise.
That's when the wives come in and they're like, hey, tone it down a little bit.
No question.
Zach, as the older brother, do you ever break down Austin's pre- and post-game performances on BYUtv?
In all honesty,
do you watch the pre and post game? How often are you watching? Is the real question.
I was going to say I haven't seen a ton. We came up here and I was hoping to get to see him do it, but I don't know if he's going to do it this week. But
I think I'm out this week.
But I've seen some of his stuff, like some of the stuff that he's done, like where he's visited the different away teams, like restaurants and stuff, and and I'm a broadcast journalism major.
Are you
so
really?
So that's what I graduated in. So it's funny that I'm, obviously not doing it now, and he's the one that's kind of carrying on. So it's cool.
You actually have a great broadcast voice.
Really?
You really do. Truly, you do.
Okay,
That's funny. You're gonna have to tell your wife
I'm
that.
gonna have to clip that for my kids and my wife because literally before we came here, they didn't know that we were doing this, and they literally said, "Hey, don't make your voice weird when you're talking." And I was like, "What do you mean?"
Super pitchy.
And I looked at my wife, and I'm going, like, what are they talking about? And she just kind of gave me like a little look like, it's kind of weird.
Oh, I love that so much. If your wife can't tell you the truth, who can?
Right,
you know
exactly
what I mean?
right.
You all grew up in El Dorado Hills, California. Your dad played football at BYU, but not all former players let their kids start playing football at a young age. So I want to ask you, and we'll start with Zach since you're the oldest boy. You kind of set the standard. When did you start getting involved in football?
Oh, I started football. We lived in Vegas at the time. I think I was 7 or 8. Like it was the first thing that we could do was probably soccer at 4 and 5, 6, and then rolled right into Pop Warner as soon as we could do it. So it was early.
Your dad was all about it. He's like, let's do this.
Yeah, and he coached our teams, and it was from as soon as we could do it. I think we did it.
Austin, what did sports mean to your family growing up? Because I know there's 5 of you. All 5 of you are athletes. What did it mean to your family growing up?
I think it meant everything, right? I think it all started with Zach. Like you said, he started playing football when he was that young, and I think it was a way for our parents to kind of channel their teachings, right? I mean, similar to our kids now, it is a vehicle to allow us to teach about life lessons. That's why I'm such a huge fan of football and what it means, why I continue to let my kids play football. Even after everything that's happened in the NFL with concussions, et cetera, everyone asks, you still let your kids play football? I say absolutely, because I don't think there's another way for me to be able to teach my kids about life, about overcoming obstacles, about getting out of your comfort zone and really pushing through kind of those barriers of uncertainty. It's the ultimate way for us to gain confidence. And I think our parents noticed from a very young age that we all had a little bit of athleticism, right, in our DNA. And they said, okay, the goal is to find out what you're good at and then do everything that you can to try and become great, right? Trying to become the best. And I think it made it easy for them to kind of, teach us those things over time. So, sports obviously for us has been a huge thing, continues to be a huge thing. I mean, like Dylan said, of the things that we all talk about, I'd say 90% of it is about sports, right? About football. And then, bets we've made over the course of time that we haven't won because we're not super successful in that. But yeah, it's been the cornerstone, I think, of all of our families and upbringing.
And now that you're all parents, and I don't know if you think of this, but I'm like, sports are to keep kids out of trouble too. Like I think that now that I have my own boys, I'm like, please go do something with your time.
Now more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like you let. We're in the thick of it right now, right? I've got a 13-year-old, I've got a 12-year-old. They both play football, both play basketball. Like last night, I wasn't even able to make dinner because we were running people to practices. I got a daughter who's in soccer now, and with technology, the kids that I'm seeing that aren't staying busy are usually the ones nose deep in their phone looking at things that they shouldn't, right? So, we there are nights obviously where my wife and I look at each other and are like, I don't know how much longer we can maintain this. Yeah. Which is funny because we're having a 5th child. So
hey, congrats.
Right now, it's a little kind of hair on fire, but we are grateful that they are busy, right? And that their nose isn't in the phone constantly and doing and saying things and acting a certain way that typically kids that have too much time on their hands act.
Zach, how many kids do you have?
I have 3.
3 kids.
Yeah, my oldest actually here's her first year here.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
She's a cougar.
She's a cougar.
I love that.
Yeah.
And they're involved in sports?
They are. So my oldest was a soccer player, played pretty competitively, with the Olympic Development Program club and traveled to Portugal for, 2 times to play. But then at the end of the day, it didn't work out the way she wanted to. And she had some opportunity to play some small schools, but ultimately wanted to play Division I soccer. And so when it didn't work out, she obviously was came here and decided to kind of channel that. She actually wants to do some sort of still be involved with sports from a studies perspective. So So we'll see how that goes.
I love that.
And then I've got my middle one who played basketball. It's kind of this funny the way Austin was saying is just like, we grew up playing sports. That's kind of all we knew. Our kids have all played sports, and my junior in high school now came to us, before the basketball season and said, hey, look, I don't want to do this, and I want to do some certain, other things and whatnot. And I think at the end of the day, like Austin was saying, it's like, you want them to stay busy, you want them to stay active, and whether that means sports or doing something else. And
absolutely.
And then I have a younger one who's also in soccer. So
I love it.
Yeah.
So great. And it's probably crazy. You're like looking back, you're like, how are we this old? Because I remember when you were a freshman in college, you know what I mean? Like, and then your kids are getting that old. It's weird.
It is weird.
Time is weird, isn't it?
Weird.
Speaking of, let's go to Dylan, the little brother, who will probably always be viewed as the little brother, right?
Yep.
To you guys. Dylan, were you bullied by these guys growing up?
No.
Okay.
And the only time that there was any sort of like older brother moments in that way is like in our bedroom. Austin and I shared a room up until Zach left for college. So the only thing that would occur was they would send me on one side of the room, and they would both have pillows, and then I would just run through the gauntlet, right, and see if I could make it to the other side of the room. Other than that, right, it was always just a really loving environment where I just got to observe, and I think that's been a huge part of my life and success is just being able to watch them too.
What influence did they have on your initial love of football?
Everything. Being able to go at 4 and 5 years old and watch them at practice while our dad coached was like the foundation of everything, right? And so I always felt as a kid I was good at football. Like I was good at football, right? I made it to the levels that you want to be at outside of the NFL, but I was probably way more talented at baseball. I was a lot better at baseball than I even was at football, but because of them, it was like, well, they play football. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. And so being able just to have that example, and because of that age gap, right? Being in junior high, elementary school, and being able to watch him at BYU, and then being in high school and being able to watch him at BYU, and then in the NFL, and it was this experience that, I think you could probably threaten to say there's not many little brothers that got to grow up in the environments with the resources that I did, and it made it unbelievable.
You were a phenomenal wide receiver at Hawaii and BYU, but do you ever look back and you're like, why didn't I play baseball?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. And that was like the only sport. Our parents weren't, like, it's not like our dad was the guy who said, we're going to wake up every morning at 4:30 and we're going to go to the church and we're going to work out. And then, right? Like, it was never like that. The only sport you had to play was baseball because that was our dad's first love. And so.
Yeah, he would have much rather had us play baseball.
Really?
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
That's
and
funny.
so once it was like, Zach stopped playing baseball, Austin stopped playing. You had to play up until high school. And then Zach stopped a little early. Austin stopped right up until, freshman year because of your arm. Mm-hmm. And then once it was like, well, right, I think I'll play up until high school and then I'll be done.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the expectation.
Mm-hmm. That was the
guys.
only sports expectation we ever had outside of like you're going to give it 100%. But other than that, baseball was the only thing.
Zach, I want to know, was there ever a pressure to follow in your dad's footsteps, or did your love for football come naturally?
It's interesting. Like our dad didn't really talk about his football really a lot. I mean, it was obviously known, but he's not one of these that you see on like podcasts these days, like the football guy, right?
Yeah.
Our dad is not the classic football guy, so I don't think we inherited that too much. I think it was just more of like, just loved the team camaraderie, just the sport itself, just being able to like put on pads and wake up Saturday morning and get to the field and smell the newly cut grass, and you've got a bunch of kids that are running around, and you're doing all the hitting drills, and it was just fun.
Yeah,
I think it was just fun.
We will be right back with more from the Collies after this break. And now back to Royal Legacy and your host, Lauren McClain.
Peyton and Eli Manning wrote a book with their dad, Archie. It's called Family Huddle, and it describes their three brothers, just bringing the football everywhere they went, coming up with plays, catching the ball. And my boys love to read it. It's one of their favorite books. Yep. So in my brain, that's how I picture your family being. Austin, is that how it was in reality for you guys?
Yeah, I think so. Like Dylan was talking about the drill we used to do, right? Like that pillow gauntlet drill. That was a daily occurrence. And we were trying to see if we could break his leg, right? But I think it wasn't so much just always football, right? Like it was whatever the sport was at that time of year. That was what we were always doing. There were a lot of arguments, a lot of fights out in the out on the street during basketball games. There were whether it was home run derby at the the local park, whatever it was whatever the season was. We were all pretty dang competitive. Even our sisters, right? Like our sisters were super competitive, and we get super competitive, and I get super competitive with my sister in basketball because she used to play basketball. So. But it was just hopping around game to game, getting to see each other. I think about, me being, like 7 in Las Vegas when Zach was playing football. And my parents still have the footage, right? And you can see me just kind of wanting to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. Similar to how Dylan says he was kind of with us. Like, I think that kind of got passed down from, generation to generation of just being able to sit back and want to be a part of the action, even though we weren't maybe a part of the team. But, practicing outside, playing outside, whatever it was. And like, these guys have been saying, like, our parents were never pushing us in one direction. It was always just, hey, if you're going to do this, you better give it everything you got, right? And there were some instances where, dads you could tell Dad's love for the game maybe kind of came to the surface. There's one clip when that I'm actually thinking of when we were in Vegas and Zach was, I think, moping a little bit. He was 8 or 9 at the time. He was moping a little bit, and we were all watching together as a family. My dad's trying to paint this picture to his grandkids, like, I wasn't as bad. I wasn't as bad as your dads are saying. And then you turn on the clip, and sure enough, my dad is giving Zach an earful as he's going out on the field with him, and then finally takes Zach and throws him off the sideline, like, you're not playing anymore because of the attitude. So
your dad's like, oh
yeah.
How do you come back from that?
But no, it's fun, and then it's just fun to kind of see those teachings and that kind of competitive nature, kind of seeing within our own kids when they get together.
And it's interesting, right, that you give your parents a little more grace when you become parents yourselves. Like you're like, oh, my dad and mom were A, B, C, D, and then now that your parents are like, oh, they actually weren't that bad. They were pretty great parents.
My dad, I think I might be the only kid in the history of sports that got benched by their dad for an entire year. It wasn't like that happened too, but like later on when we had moved to Sacramento, it was like I had one bad scrimmage or something like that. I was a quarterback. I didn't play very well. And that was it. That was it for me the entire year. It was like I never play, I was a second string quarterback from there on. So
no mercy,
we'll find
no
a
bias.
spot for him.
yeah,
we'll find a spot for him.
Hey, get on water.
Yeah,
You're on water.
Oh, man, that's brutal. Austin, I like to talk to the middle child because you get a unique perspective on your siblings. What was Zach like growing up as your older brother?
Zach was Mr. Social, always had this personality that everybody kind of gravitated towards, right? Always. And I was a little bit different, right? Like Zach was rolling with like 10 friends, 15 friends deep, and always making plans for them, and still does. Like Zach's our party planner for the family. But he has this way about him that people just gravitate towards, right? And that was something that I've always admired because I'm kind of the exact opposite, right? Like I only had a very, very select few friends, and some people find me extremely annoying, right? The personality may be a little bit over the top, right? The intensity may be a little bit over the top, but Zach always had this way of making everybody feel comfortable, And the other thing that Zach continues to exude is just his willingness to continue to work, right? Like that was the other thing that nowadays I'm having to teach to my kids, right?
Yeah.
Using him as an example. I was just giving my kid, my oldest, to talk about, hey, listen, you never know when your time's gonna be called. You talk to Zach. Zach was 5. What were you in high school? You're 5'9".
Yeah.
Okay.
What I am today.
What Dylan is today.
Hey, on the BYU website it says 5'10", so I'd claim that, or 5'11" maybe. With cleats on, right?
So 5'9". How many balls did you catch in high school?
I can't even remember.
Your varsity career, how many balls did you catch?
I couldn't remember. I was not I had my best friend was record breaker. Austin ended up breaking all of his records, but he was the guy.
Mm.
So a handful of balls, okay, and then ends up being the only receiver at BYU in his class to be in an NFL camp, right? Earn a scholarship, come on as a walk-on, right? So like that diligence, like I don't know if I had that. Right, but I was able to learn a part of it, just seeing what kind of his journey looked like, and just his relentless persistence of knowing exactly how good he is, and then wanting to get there and not letting the things he couldn't control, like height or size, be the determining factor. Right, and I'm constantly just like my son right now, he weighs maybe 75 pounds soaking wet, and he's 13, right? Like, and so he's going into freshman ball, and I've had to have multiple talks with him of just like, listen, this may not work out the way that you think. I mean, super talented kid, very talented, but I've had to tell him because of size, because size matters right now, this may not go exactly how you think it's going to go.
Yeah.
Like your journey may not be like mine, right? And so I'm always referring to just listen to Uncle Zach, right? Talk to Uncle Zach. Uncle Zach grinded, and never gave up, and then ended up being one of the top wideouts coming out of BYU.
That is so cool. And what a cool example for you and for your kids.
Yeah.
One thing I love about siblings and, having brothers and sisters is with my own kids, I do that too. I'm like, please take a look at what they've done. Or, I need your help raising my own kids. I think that's one of the coolest things about having families and big families at that. So, Austin, we're sticking with you because I want to know, how would you describe how Dylan was as your younger brother growing up?
Dylan was Dylan had, playing-wise, Dylan obviously had the benefit of kind of looking how, he mentioned it before, kind of seeing how maybe the sausage was made, right? At that time I was playing in the NFL, but Dylan had a very, like he was different than Zach and I in the sense that Dylan wasn't having, at least this is kind of the way that it appeared, Dylan wasn't having an internal struggle after every game and was going into every single game like the confidence was just off the charts. Like I'm going to hit like no matter what, I'm going to be playing lights out, right? And like I was never like that, only because and that was to my fault. That would kill me sometimes. But I would look at Dylan, and because of I call it like naive optimism, right? He saw the success. One older brother end up in camp with the Eagles. One older brother end up in the NFL. So what do you think? His mindset was like, oh, this is happening.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm going to be there too.
I'm going to be great. And I think that gave him a different level to play on, right? And again, that's the level that I desire my kids to have, right? Because that confidence and that certainty or naive optimism, that is a scary, scary thing to have, not only on the football field, but in life, right?
Yeah.
To be able to say, like, listen, I'm going to grind, and I know if I grind, all this other stuff, that's not going to pertain to me or that's not going to hold me back. I am going to get there, right? Dylan was probably the most Dylan, not many people know this, but Dylan played quarterback in high school, right? Dylan played running back in high school. Dylan played receiver in high school. Like, the kid did it all, right? And had, multiple opportunities, eventually chose to go to BYU, and then out of BYU off his mission, before coming back to BYU, who was offering you? Wake Forest?
Yep.
Vanderbilt,
USC.
right? USC. Like, I mean, the kid was, an absolute nightmare for people on the field. But in terms of personality, Dylan is he's more of a free spirit, right? And I tell my kid, I wish my kids or hope my kids end up kind of with that free spirit. I want them nothing like me, is what I'm trying to tell you. Okay.
Look at your Uncle
if they
Dylan.
could be more like these two, right, and level of confidence and just sheer grind persistence, man, I'd be a happy camper.
Dylan, do you agree with that? Did you have that naive optimism that Austin's talking about?
Yeah. Because there wasn't like another option for me. It was like because of that, because consistently being around that. Like I was saying, like it wasn't like you talked about the family huddle with the Mannings, right? Like I think if you asked many 15 and 16-year-olds if they've sat in a room with their brother, Archie Manning, Peyton Manning, and Eli Manning, and just the 5 of us, right? Like they'd probably be like, yeah, no chance. And that was like something that I did. That wasn't something like, that's not a once in a lifetime, like that's an opportunity that I had on a regular basis with Zach and Austin. And so for me, like Austin was saying, being able to watch that and see that, it was like, if I didn't amount to that, it was disappointment, right? Like I was very disappointed when it didn't work out. It was absolutely traumatizing at 26 years old, right? But I think of all the experiences that it gave me, and there was always the question like, do you feel the pressure of your brothers? Do you feel the pressure of being the youngest brother? And it was never about the pressure that was put on me by them or my parents or, right? It was, yes, there was plenty of outside pressure.
Yeah.
And I obviously walked into that pressure as soon as I came here in 2012.
Right.
But being able to have that was 110% a blessing, right? It wasn't even the thought of it ever being a curse, or there wasn't this thought of like jealousy or what if I don't amount, or I'm going to be spiteful because of their success. It was always like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I think that's kind of what led to this free spirit is like, yeah, I do get to have these opportunities on a regular basis, and it is the most fun thing in the entire world, right? And now my wife and the amount of fun that I consistently want to have, right, absolutely kills her. But it's a part of, right, just maturing.
And I think the one thing that just to reiterate, right, like I think Dylan, he had the equation, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that's where the kind of the free spirit came from. He knew, okay, if I grind like they did, and I do all the things right off the field like they did, there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to do that, right? And so it's just like, and correct me if I'm wrong, D, but like that's kind of what, because the kid grinded. Like he saw us grind. Like I don't think there's been, out of all 3 of us, no one's been in better shape. No one's been better prepared than what he was coming into college football. So it's like, if I do these things and then off the field, keep my head right, do everything I'm supposed to, just follow this game plan, there's no reason why I shouldn't get to where I'm just as talented as these guys. There's no reason why I shouldn't get to here, right? And so for him, he didn't have that roadmap. So it's like he kind of had, I mean, obviously being the older brother, he had to forge that route of, hey, this is kind of how it's done. This is what I got to do. This is what I got to overcome, right? And then, for me, I mean, that's easy to follow, right? I just got to do what he did, and then I'll come out on the other side better, right? And then, Dylan even more so, right? Like that roadway or that map or that trail or whatever it is, that pathway to success only got wider and more defined.
Yeah, you guys are incredible. I'm here with the Collie Brothers, former BYU wide receivers and brothers. Thank you guys so much for taking the time, and I know this is a rare time for you all to be together, so thank you for using some of it to be with me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Loved it.
Thanks again to Dylan, Austin, and Zach Collie for coming on the show with me. Carter Bond and Tori Kimball helped produce this episode with senior producer Terry South. You can join the Royal Legacy wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, or on BYURadio.org. Royal Legacy is a production of BYU Broadcasting.